I was in the process of editing the show last week and about to put it up. Bray Wyatt passes away. And actually, I found out from you. You told me within minutes of it, the news breaking on X, formerly known as Twitter. That's how you're supposed to talk about it now. I'm just going to call it fucking Twitter. But you told me, and I was stunned. But one of those things where we've had to wait a week to talk about it. I've addressed it elsewhere, but we'll kind of get into it here today. Massive news in the world of wrestling, and a super tragic loss, obviously. But in addition to that, all the CM Punk drama from AEW from the past week, specifically stemming from the incident backstage at All In. The biggest wrestling show of all time is what they billed it as, and attendance-wise it was, and then it kind of gets overshadowed in the days that followed by this dumb CM Punk, Jack Perry drama, and CM Punk suspended, Jack Perry suspended, is Punk done to the AEW? We had this, I feel like it's deja vu. We've had this conversation many times before, specifically almost exactly 1 year ago, coming out of All Out 2022. So we'll get into it, where we are, full circle a year later. Speaking of All In, we'll review All In and also preview All Out for this coming weekend and Payback for Saturday. So like I said, a lot to get into. It does not feel like a pay-per-view weekend. Last weekend did with All In that Sunday. It does not feel like a pay-per-view weekend this weekend, despite there being two pay-per-views, which is not a rare thing. I think the last time that happened was, I think, not too long ago, but it might have been before that, though. I'm thinking of All Out last year with Clash of the Castle and All Out. And just neither of these shows coming up this weekend feel like they're must-see by any means.
I mean, I know there's two shows going on, but I just feel like the build for... I mean, even Payback, I don't know, I feel like Payback... I feel like they both feel like glorified Raws or Dynamites, honestly.
It really does, especially that All-Out card and the Payback card I'm looking forward to as well. I'm looking forward to both shows, and I'm sure they're going to be sleeper shows, and that I'm not overly anticipating them or whatever. But it is interesting that for the first time in a while, we do not have any bloodline involvement on the show at all. And even the shows that Roman Reigns was not wrestling on earlier this year, which is not most of them. He was on most pay-per-views this year, for everyone saying, he doesn't work at all, he doesn't defend his championship, which he fucking doesn't. But he's been on most pay-per-views. I think the only pay-per-view he's missed, if I'm not mistaken, was Backlash. And even that one had a bloodline match on it. Unless something gets added on SmackDown this week, which is going to feature the return of Jimmy Uso. Maybe they were going to set something up last week before the tribute show happened, and they had to bump it to this week. I don't think so. It's only a 6-match card as of right now, and they don't typically go beyond that. So, but between that and the AEW World Championship not being defended on Sunday, just does not feel like a pay-per-view weekend, but we'll get to those pay-per-views nonetheless. New episodes of WrestleRant Radio every single week here on WrestleRant.com, WrestleRantRadio.com, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, and Podbean. Rate the show, review the show, subscribe to the show. Never miss a new episode every single week here on the feed. Let's get into the most obvious news, Mr. Marceau. The passing of Bray Wyatt happening a week ago. Still feels surreal, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I know we've had tributes up and down, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. All the wrestling companies mentioning it at the beginning of their shows this week. Tributes all across social media for the past 7 days. Still has not completely sunk in. I honestly, I don't even really know where to start. I talked about it a bit yesterday on hashtag rather. I honestly don't really even know where to start. I guess just beyond your initial reaction of just shock and sadness, I guess, a week ago when you found out, and you told me soon after.
Yeah, I just literally happened. I was just sitting. I just happened to go on Twitter, and so I literally, the first thing that popped up was the Triple H tweet, and I was like, what the fuck? And I just was like, I gotta text Graham. Like, I literally, that's the first thing I thought of. I'm like, I have to text Graham. And I just was stunned sitting there. I'm like, what the fuck? And just like, I literally sat there probably for 20 minutes after I texted. He was like, how is this possible? Mm-hmm. And it literally just like stunned me.
Yeah, I mean, I was not watching wrestling. I texted you this, but I think he was, and as other people have said, I was not watching when the Benoit thing happened, obviously, or when the Eddie Guerrero thing happened. And I think the Eddie one is more relatable because the Benoit one, I mean, I would say it's a similar situation where it was someone on the active roster and how do they pass away, but then that shock kind of goes, I mean, it was still shocking, obviously, but like the sadness in that we felt from the Wyatt passing kind of went away immediately with the Benoit one, I would imagine, when it came out less than 24 hours later, what had actually happened. Whereas with Eddie Guerrero was the one where they had the full-on in-person tribute show, and Again, he was active on the roster, a beloved member of the roster. That wasn't due to suspicious circumstances like with the Benoit one, obviously, where it was flat out confirmed what had happened there. Very similar to that, and that was almost 20 years ago. And again, I wasn't a fan for that, so this was like my first time experiencing where we had someone on the active roster. And again, I know like we had the Warrior one a decade ago where he was on Raw less than 24 hours earlier. But this is someone that hasn't been on the show since earlier this year. But I think the bigger thing is that he was only 36. Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda, passing away at 36, came out a little bit later on from Fightful that it was due to heart complications. He had COVID earlier this year. That exacerbated was the word used. Some heart complications I think he probably already had. They weren't too specific, but it doesn't really matter. And that was what kind of caused his passing, and he had a heart attack, and he died on Thursday of last week. And then TMZ had come out, which I don't typically not a fan of when they kind of give extra details, but it is kind of pertinent in this situation. They had mentioned that he had been given a heart defibrillator by he had been prescribed, or whatever the word would be, by his doctors around that same time, around, this time actually. And he was due for a checkup, I think last week actually. And he didn't have his defibrillator on. It was actually in his car. He didn't have it on him at the time of his heart attack. Would it have saved him? We don't know, and we'll never know. People shouldn't be, passing blame for like, oh, if he had worn it, it would have saved his life. Why wasn't he wearing it? I mean, that's not really important now, obviously. It's just more about being there for the family and whatnot. Obviously, he was soon to be married. He's been dating JoJo, former WWE ring announcer, for a long time now. Member of the WWE family. They have, I want to say 4 kids together, but 2 of them were theirs, and I think 2 of them were Wyatt's from a previous marriage. Just super sad. I mean, all the way around. Again, I'm not even really sure what else to say beyond that. I mean, the whole thing was just tragic. And I mean, again, it's still not even really sunk in a week later. Obviously, he was, a beloved favorite of so many, including Alexis, obviously. And she hasn't really completely fully, I don't know what the word is, but, had it sunk in yet, even 7 days later. But I guess the timing of it was, with SmackDown the next day, it was a tough watch. I know you had mentioned when I texted you last week that you would not watch it yet. Did you end up going to watch SmackDown last week when you had a chance, or
yeah, when I got home, I had to work Friday night, so when I got home, I watched it.
Mm-hmm. What would you think, or how'd you?
It was tough. I mean,
it was bad.
That's the best way to describe it. It was tough. I mean, I mean, like I said, just a crazy circumstance, and I mean, like I said, 36 years old, was about to get married, young kids. I mean, it's just like literally heartbreaking. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch this stuff, you can't really fully fathom that this stuff is, you can't really completely comprehend that it's actually happened and that it's real. And even watching this sort of stuff, a tribute show for someone that was only 36. Again, they've done tribute shows before for a lot of other people, legends that have passed away. It reminded me a lot of the Jay Briscoe passing from earlier this year, and that, again, it was just a freak thing. I know Wyatt's been gone for a long time, and I know, we knew he had some not heart issues specifically, but we knew he had some health issues that weren't injury related, because that had come out a couple of weeks ago. But I mean, it's wrestling. They always come back, and they're, we hear careers are over, and then they're not, and they always come back. I mean, it's not really feasible. It's not even just believable that something like this would happen until it does. It was tough. I had to actually watch the show. If I had sat there and watched the show by myself, because I was camping last week, and as you know, I probably would have been a fucking wreck. But I had to watch it in between doing other stuff and being with other people, because it would have been a rough watch otherwise. Between the video package, which I thought was amazing, and they replayed that on all the shows this week, the 10-bell salute, also for Terry Funk, which I thought was a nice touch, because he was among the greatest of all time as well, and the rocking chair in the ring. They had Rowan and Strowman there for it. I mean, that was tough. And then they also closed out the show with like the fireflies and the lantern in the ring. On Raw, they had the rocking chair. I mean, that was just, I don't know. It was beautifully done, but you never want to have these situations where that stuff even has to happen, So I mean, I thought they did an incredible job with it, all things considered.
Yeah, I agree. I think like even the promos, like the LA Knight, the run at the end, fuck, that got me good. I was like, oh, like you said, it was done beautifully. You just never want to see something like this, but for what they did, like Cody's speech about Terry Funk was good as well. Rollins, I saw on social media after how show was good. Becky's words after Raw. I mean, the thing they posted yesterday was heart wrenching. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, I watched that whole thing as well. For anyone who hasn't, they only posted yesterday on social media and on YouTube. It was a 35-minute tribute from various members of the roster just kind of sitting down. I imagine they just... I mean, so the Good Brothers had mentioned, it only just happened yesterday. So I imagine it was taped at SmackDown. Maybe some at Raw too, but it seemed like it was taped at SmackDown because a lot of people were at SmackDown during the tribute last Friday. They had flown people in last minute. But it was several superstars from the current roster sitting down just to share their thoughts, memories, and everything of Wyndham and working with him and just him as a person. They got Bailey in there. Like I said, the Good Brothers were in there. Drew McIntyre's was tough. He posted the whole thing.
Drew McIntyre's, I think I shed it to you.
Yeah, I definitely did. I'll tell you that right now. I didn't maybe. I 100,000% did. Him and Otis's was tough too. Otis was talking about, I don't really... It's hard to deal with death for me. I mean, Sami Zayn was just in complete disbelief, and I loved his honesty when he was like, I feel like I just run away from these type of things because I don't even want to believe that they're real. Between Wyndham and family members, and Otis had mentioned that he had lost the sister, which I think was news to everyone watching that, I would imagine. And we actually just saw Otis a couple of weeks ago at that SummerSlam media junket, and every time I've interacted with him at one of those things, I've actually never met him in person until this year. I've met him like 3 times. He's always in character, and he's always like super upbeat. So to see him with that kind of tone in his voice, just completely down to earth, and he's always awesome, but just with that kind of grief tone that he was speaking with was it hit me hard. That one, and Mike Rome's was good. You know who else got me, and I'm sure it did for you if you watched the whole thing. Byron Saxton's at the end. Because he knew Wyndham very well from their days in FCW. I think they saved his for the end for a reason, because he was like, he really broke down there, as did Drew, but especially Byron. He kind of had trouble speaking through his thing because he was crying towards the end. And they closed it out with Samantha. What'd you say?
Samantha Irvin.
Yeah, Samantha Irvin's singing tribute to he's got the whole world in his hands, which I thought was incredibly well done. They've done a lot of those sort of tributes on social media, including posting full matches and moments and promos over the course of his career, celebrating the life and legacy of Bray Wyatt Wyndham, which is kind of the best way to, I don't want to say get your mind off of it, but like just kind of focus on the positive and not so much on the fact that he's gone. But speaking of which, we'll do the exact same thing here. I had done this yesterday in hashtag, but I'll kind of repeat what I said yesterday. I won't go first because, again, like I said, I've already shared this elsewhere before, so I'll start with you per usual. Just kind of talking about Bray Wyatt, because I know he was among your favorites as well. Through the ups and the downs of their handling of him, hardly his fault. I mean, I would say through this most recent run, it's also been a lot of the same thing, where it was some great moments and some not so great moments. His creativity kind of going a little, I don't want to say too far, but kind of the best of what he was doing at certain points, if he had anything even to do with that, but that's not even really the point anyway. That's not even what we're really here to discuss. The fact that we even had the chance to see him come back, I think was what really makes me happy more than anything, that for him to have that opportunity for not only us fans to see him back in the company, but also for him to be able to see his coworkers again and work with them. It didn't last long. He was only specifically back in WWE, like on TV, backstage at the shows, for only about 5 months, from October through March, and then he disappeared from the show. Only one televised match with LA Knight, but he was all over the shows. And again, we were at a lot of shows this past year, and we were there for a lot of those Bray Wyatt moments. I was there when he came back at Extreme Rules, but I mean, the SmackDown that you and I had gone to with, was it your dad? No, it was with Molly. It was with Molly and Alexis. He was at that show, I'm pretty sure, too, in Providence. I think he was at that show doing something. He was on that episode of SmackDown. He was on the SmackDown that I was at a week before that in Hartford. He was at the one that you and I went to in Montreal, and I think I tweeted this, but I think that was his last in-person appearance on a SmackDown. I completely forgot about this until I was reminded on Twitter, but we were actually at his last on-air appearance. I mean, he was on SmackDown after that, but he was doing like the Firefly Funhouse stuff with Bobby Lashley, and he never appeared in person. It was all video package stuff. the SmackDown that we were at the day before Elimination Chamber, he did the hit row thing, which again I completely forgot about, where he and Uncle Howdy came out and interrupted them. So cool to have been there for that and experienced the new Bray Wyatt character and entrance and whatever. And I think we stayed around. We stuck around, you and I, for the Bray Wyatt match, which was the same match he had a week earlier when he faced LA Knight after SmackDown, because I was there for that too. But he had a match with LA Knight after the show went off the air in Montreal, and it was awesome. So anyway, just again, being one of your favorites, I know this obviously hits us all hard, but he was one of those people that when I first met you, he was among your favorites as well 10 years ago, almost exactly, which is crazy to think about. And just having an incredible run from when he first started, even as Husky Harris before that, and everything through he accomplished, former WWE champion, tag team champion several times over, up until his recent return. Give me your favorite Bray Wyatt moments and matches, moments and memories from the last 10 years.
Jesus. I mean, honestly, like when he first debuted, like basically once he got on the main roster, it was like the buzzard character, or like the swamp dweller, like literally was like really got me into him. I feel like it was something completely new that we'd never really seen before, and like him with Rowan and Harper, it just like clicked, and he just, I don't know, like that was like, I feel like that was my favorite run of him, leading into WrestleMania 30. Should have beat John Cena, but we'll gloss past that because we do it every time. But I feel like that was my favorite incarnation of Wyatt. I mean, obviously, like the Firefly Funhouse, the Fiend, wasn't overly a fan of it, but I mean, still was something different and new. And I do wish he kind of had gone back to the Swamp character, but I obviously understand with Harper passing, he didn't want to do that. But I mean, I think, like you said, just even though like they had Bryan in the Wyatt family, they kind of like pushed Bryan up the card, and that was when he was getting his popularity. Their match for the Shield, the match at WrestleMania 33 against Randy Orton. Just kidding, that match was terrible. Mm-hmm. But no, I think everything like leading up to that point, I just was my favorite part of what he was doing. Like I said, the recent stuff, like he was gonna be normal, then it was the Firefly Funhouse, and they kind of did the whole new character before he was off TV. I don't know if that was a creative thing, his thing. I don't know. We never really got a full scope because like he came back and it was going to be like Bray Wyatt, and then he was kind of doing like the Uncle Howdy stuff with him going back to Firefly Funhouse, and it was kind of all over the place. So I kind of really wish I knew what was going on, because the last time we had saw him or wrestle, I guess at the Royal Rumble, he like had that new mask, and Uncle Howdy was on his side, and we really didn't know what was going on. But I think just seeing him come back just in general was good, because, I mean, even when he first originally got released, like, we were stunned. I mean,
yeah,
I feel like they had so much more, like, longevity, and I feel like he could have done more. I don't know if it was just the character itself. There's just so many different intertwined different things that I don't know what happened, but I just think once he kind of went away from the Swamp character, like even when like he was facing like the Undertaker, like once he lost to him, I feel like his momentum kind of like went away, and it not killed his career per se, but I just feel like he was a different character, and like he was doing more hocus pocus stuff and would never win when it mattered most. I mean, like he did win the WWE Championship, but I feel like that was a quick afterthought. Like I said, that match against Randy Orton was not overly amazing, and then he did have the Universal Championship as the Fiend, but then got beat by Goldberg. So, I mean, I think his beginning was great, the middle was but the ending was like kind of a feel-good moment that he was finally back, and just unfortunately ended too soon.
Yeah, no, I mean, he could have accomplished so much more. It really is hard to kind of conceive, like I had said, he had debuted on the main roster 10 years ago this summer. And even before that, he was in the company for years. I mean, he had been in FCW maybe 08, maybe 07, but I'm thinking 08, 09. You could probably look it up, but he probably signed around that point, because he went to NXT on that awful rendition of the show when it was still a competition show.
I literally love that first season.
I don't think it was the first season. I think he was on the second season. If you go back, it's a fucking trip.
He signed in 09.
09, okay. That makes sense. So he was with the company for a long time. debuting in 2010 on TV as Husky Harris, as I mentioned earlier. He joined the new Nexus. I remember I had seen Wade Barrett's tribute to Bray on social media last week, and obviously everyone knew him and everyone kind of came up in the company with him. But, someone like Wade specifically worked with him a lot in FCW, which I didn't even really realize. Drew McIntyre, too, because I think as fans, we kind of think, this guy worked with him for a long time, so they obviously have the fondest memories. But no, there's also a lot of people that never worked with him once on TV. I don't think Drew and Bray had a single match, but they were extremely close friends, according to what Drew said in that tribute yesterday that dropped. So, he was there for a long time, and he was there as Husky Harris. He did the Nexus thing. He got kicked in the head by Randy Orton. A lot of Randy Orton involvement over the course of his career. Between that and the 2017 feud. I had said this yesterday in my hashtag video. And I think this is honestly an incredibly underrated period of his career. But when he was with the Wyatt family, Randy Orton was, and they were doing that whole little thing with him, Harper, and Orton from late 2016, early 2017, that was probably one of the best parts of the Bray Wyatt career and character. Like, they were booking him consistently to win. He was over. They had great chemistry. Orton had felt fresher than he had in a long time. They won the tag titles together for only a couple of weeks. It was incredibly short-lived, but they had a great run together, a really, really good run together. And then, like you said, it culminated in that terrible match at WrestleMania. But, listen, he did get to win the WWE Championship multiple times. The 2 Universal title reigns were not great, because when he won the Universal title the first time, it was in Saudi Arabia. And then he lost in Saudi Arabia too. But it was after he'd already lost that Hell in a Cell match. And I don't blame him for that. It seemed like whatever they had planned seemed to be just completely nixed by Vince McMahon, and then whatever they were given to do instead was just awful, obviously. But he was champion for a few months there. He won the belt for a second time in 2020. Held it for a week. Literally yesterday, Roman Reigns marked 3 years of Roman Reigns as champion. He beat Bray Wyatt for it in that triple threat. Never pinned Bray, but he beat him for the title technically. Bray is still technically, even in passing, the former Universal Champion, which is kind of, you talk about, I saw people saying, what's changed since Roman Reigns has been champion? I mean, the guy that held it previously is no longer here. I mean, that only happened last week, but it's just kind of crazy to think about. People kind of forget about that. But the Wyatt family stuff with Orton was amazing. That original Wyatt family character was great, like you mentioned. That was definitely, I think, the peak of his run, because you have to remember too, not only as far as the character he felt fresh, but the Bryan feud was great. That angle on Raw where Bryan broke away from the Wyatt family was amazing, and they had that steel cage moment on Raw, one of the best Raw moments I think of all time. And then they followed it up with the Royal Rumble match, the match at the Rumble, which was probably his best match ever, and then the Shield match, which was his best tag team match ever at Elimination Chamber. I mean, it doesn't get much hotter than that. And I texted you, I think, when you were at Mania 30 itself in New Orleans. He comes down, has that entrance. It's like, wow, this guy's a star. And then he loses to John Cena about 20 minutes later. And that was kind of it. It was all downhill from there, but not his fault. What would you say was his best match? I mean, the Randy Orton matches were just not great. They had another match in Mania 37. He lost to Orton twice at Mania, which is kind of hard to imagine because both matches sucked, and I just can't imagine he lost both times. But what would you say is your favorite Bray Wyatt match from his WWE run?
It was the one versus Bryan at Royal Rumble.
It's got to be, right? Yeah.
It's easy. Literally, I can't even think of another one that's as good. Like you said, the Elimination Chamber one, the tag with the Shield was really good. But singles wise, the one against Bryan is easily my favorite one.
I think he won clean too. I'd have to go back and watch it. I'm pretty sure he won clean too. So I don't know. It's crazy too because Bryan was at not the peak, but he was pretty goddamn popular even at that point, and he lost. And I think a lot of people expected him to win, and he didn't. And Bray won, and he kind of kicked off his feud with John Cena that night. I think they opened the show, too, if I'm not mistaken. But I got to go back and watch. That was a great match. But yeah, I didn't do a whole lot of note from that point forward. But, some honorable mentions. The Matt Hardy tag team, I enjoyed that whole thing. Went on for a while. But, they had the Ultimate Deletion thing. A lot of people never thought we would ever get the Bray Wyatt and Broken, Woken Matt Hardy characters together. And they actually did do it in 2018. It didn't live up to its full potential, but I personally thoroughly enjoyed it. That whole thing, I mentioned before, but that one moment on Raw that a lot of people gif, I feel like I see it almost every other day on Twitter, where he teamed with Roman and Roman did the gun motion with his fingers and shot it at Sheamus, and Roman speared him. Or I'm sorry, Bray was pinning Del Rio, I think, and then Roman speared Sheamus. Just fucking awesome. Like, that was the epitome of cool right there. And then, of course, Bray got hurt like a week later, so it never really went anywhere, but that was sick. You have that, the Shield match, the Shield stuff we mentioned, that winning the WWE Championship in 2017. Not even just because he won, but one of the best chamber matches, period. Fantastic match. And then two matches that still stand out to me all these years later. The Firefly Funhouse match, at a time where COVID had just kind of gotten started, and there's not a lot of replay value from those early pandemic shows, Thunderdome shows. Firefly Funhouse was something special as far as what they were able to accomplish there and what they were able to do. Him and John Cena at Mania 36. And just a great little thing they kind of put together there, and it was the best cinematic thing they had done during that period, including, in addition to the Boneyard match from that same WrestleMania. But everything with The Fiend as well. I mean, The Fiend stuff, again, had its ups and downs, and they really tried to kill the Fiend character. But when he first reinvented himself with the Fiend stuff and the Firefly Funhouse stuff, I mean, I think it was truly revolutionary in terms of the entrance he had and the character he was able to create. I think people forget how truly game-changing that character was when it first came out in 2019. I've heard from a lot of people that was able to kind of get them back into the wrestling scene after just a lot of years of just fucking nothingness. That Fiend stuff was awesome, and it's hard to imagine that someone as creative and as game-changing and as I don't know if revolutionary is the right word, but someone as brilliant of a mind as Bray Wyatt. It's just he's no longer on this earth. It's just kind of hard to conceive, you know.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
The legacy speaks for itself, but like I said, even more importantly than that, as a person, seemed to be an amazing person. I only had one interaction with him in person. I can't even imagine how the people who work with him and are obviously friends and family of the Rotundas are feeling. His brother Bo obviously was back in the company working with Bray, his uncle Howdy, his father. It's just, it's terrible. So thoughts, prayers, condolences go out to the Rotunda family, and we will miss you, Bray. We love you very much.